Hi everybody, Chris Bailey here with Physical Therapy and Balance Centers in West Erie and Corey, Pennsylvania, giving you your midday exercise break. Today is going to be for issues with the low back. If you have some tightness or arthritis down there, that's what today's going to cover. This is Steven Svets, my helper, so he's going to be going through some exercises. And what I want you to do, like usual, is just start with a little warm-up. So Steven's going to show a warm-up for the low back, and he's just going to bend forward down towards his toes here. What we're going over are exercises for mainly arthritis or stenosis in the low back. This is just a picture of the spine. It would be like this on me. So what we're looking at here is you have these little nerves that come out of the bones in your back. And what happens with arthritis is there's less space for these. So typically we want to do some movements that open up that space and allow a little bit of pressure to come off of these nerves. That's the idea with all these movements that we'll be doing today. So let your head kind of relax at the bottom of those, Steve, as you go down there. There you go. So he's just trying to reach a little bit further and further as he bends down towards his toes. I might have people do about 10 of these to warm up, and then the other one that you could try out too is just to do some trunk twists. So you can just start to rotate a little bit side to side just to stretch that low back and mid back out and your hips as you warm up like this. About 10 of those to either side. The other alternative is sometimes just to get the hip muscles firing up and to loosen up some of the glutes is to do just a light march like this here. The first exercise we're going to show is in a seat over here, and it's called, we just call it low back flexion or a forward bend in a chair. So Steven will scoot his butt out to the end of this chair here, and what he's trying to do is reach down towards his toes as far as he can, and he's letting his head and neck relax. What this does is it provides a stretch for that low back and opens up those channels where the nerves come out. This is a really good one if you have low back stenosis or arthritis in the low back, and you should be able to touch the floor with your hands here. I'm having Steven just hold for about 5 seconds with this. If you have issues with blood pressure or sometimes blood flow, if you hang down there too long when you come up, you get a little bit lightheaded. So I just like him to hold for a few seconds with that. And I'll have people do about 5 or 10 of these at home. This is a really good one if you're just generally stiff in the morning, or even before you go for a walk. You can open up those channels that might allow you to walk a little bit further before you start to experience some difficulty or pain in your low back. Okay, good. So let's come up on here to the mat. The next one we're going to show is, we call it a single knee to chest exercise. So you'll lay flat, you can lay on a bed, you can lay on a mat on the floor, and what he's trying to do now is just bring one knee at a time up towards his chest. He's going to hold for about 5 seconds, holding that knee up as far as you can, and then he'll just let that leg come down. And then you can either go back and forth to the left leg, or you can stick with that same leg. I like people to do at least 5 of these, 5 to 10 to each side. Now the one thing to consider is, if I was laying down, sometimes it feels better to not pull the knee straight up, but rather out to the side a little bit. So on his leg coming up this way, he's pulling it just slightly more towards the camera. What that does is it opens up the hip a little bit, and you might not get as much of a pinch here, and you still get a good stretch through the back of the leg and into the low back. So the next progression from these stretches is what we call a double knee to chest. What that does is it opens up the low back a little bit more by pulling the pelvis upwards to a greater extent. So now he's grabbing both knees, he's pulling them slightly apart. You can't really see here, but there's a gap between his knees, probably about 1 foot to maybe 1.5 feet, and that just helps his hips to clear with this movement too. So he should feel a little bit of a stretch through this area and through that area, and he's holding about 5 seconds with this. If you have any pain in through your back, I would avoid doing this stretch. It should mainly feel like a pulling in through here and maybe in the hips slightly. And I like people to do about 5 or 10 of these. Same thing, just a 5-second hold. And this exercise here is mainly for back arthritis. It's not good if you generally have some disc issues. We might want to go a different direction. Good. Okay, so now I want to show the piriformis stretch. So what he's going to do, press this foot over that one there, is on the leg that's furthest up this way, it's his right leg, he's going to pull that knee towards his opposite shoulder. And he's hooking his foot over top of the other leg, like this. What that stretch does is you have a muscle in through here called your piriformis muscle that tends to get tight. When that happens, it can pinch on some of the nerves that come out of the low back. So this is a really good stretch for the hips if you have some back or hip trouble. If it's difficult for you to lay like that or to cross your legs like that, an alternative way to do this stretch is you just sit in a chair, cross one leg over the other. You don't have to let that knee come down very far. And now you're just going to pull up across to the opposite shoulder. And I feel that stretch right through here as I do that. And then you'd hold with this one a little bit longer, about 10 to 15 seconds. And then you can just switch to the other side and repeat with these. Okay, so let's go into the quadriceps stretch there, Stephen. So I call this one just a dog leash stretch. Most people have a dog leash at home to use for this. If you don't, a tie strap could work. They sell these stretch out straps on Amazon and any other sporting goods store. So what you do is you hook this little strap or the handle part of the dog leash around your shoe like this. You make sure that your knees are together here because that lets you cheat a little bit. And now Stephen's going to pull with his arms up that direction. And what he's doing is he's stretching this big muscle across the front of the thigh called the quadriceps. This muscle, one part of that attaches up into the hip, and what it can do is it can pull your hip forward like this if it's tight, which can cause a kink in the low back. If you have arthritis in the back, this can be especially bad because it puts it in a bad position, not allowing that area to open up. So as he stretches this here, he's lengthening this muscle, and then that can allow the pelvis to come back to a more normal position and through here. I like people to hold about 10 to 15 seconds with this, 3 to 5 times each side. He should feel that mainly pull through here. It shouldn't create any knee pain, and it shouldn't create any low back pain. If it does bother your low back, what you can do is get a little pillow and put it underneath your pelvis because you're not in that extended position with your back while you do this. The other thing to consider while you do this, do just one more, Stephen, is he should be able to pull this. What's a normal stretch is his heel should be able to touch his butt there. So go a little further. You feel that in your quad? Oh, it's a little tight. So he needs to do more of this. He's a little bit tight there. So we'd say it's about 3 inches from his glutes. We could measure that. If you have a total knee replacement, oftentimes people don't do this stretch at home, but it's really important because they might have a good knee bend when they sit or when they stand. When they lay like this, they might just have a bend like this, which means that muscle is really tight. This can alleviate a lot of that pain that they still might have after having a total knee. Okay, so let's go over. We're going to show one more stretch over at the stairs here, the hip flexor stretch, a little longer stretch. As long as Fess doesn't lasso himself with the band there doing stuff. They jump out of that. Yeah. All right, so this one here, he'll put one foot up on the step like that. What he's going to do is he's going this direction here. If I'm showing it from this stance, he'll get a little pull on the leg that's back this way in the front and through here. The reason why we're doing this for the low back is the other muscle that attaches up into the pelvis is called your hip flexor. It helps you with this kind of motion, but if that muscle gets tight, it also pulls your pelvis forwards like this. So we're doing this stretch here to loosen these muscles so that it brings you back into a more normal position. I'll have people hold this about 5 to 10 seconds, and then I want him to repeat with his other leg going forward. He keeps that other leg back straight like this. He might also feel a little bit of a pulling through the calf. That's fine. It's just a good stretch through that area at the same time. This should not bother the knees or any other areas in through there. So these are my main go-tos for people who have stenosis or back arthritis. If you try these and they don't generally help you, there's some other things that we can do. We do low back traction. We have deep tissue laser therapy. We have some manual techniques that can be really effective when added with these exercises. So if you have problems with your back, or if you know somebody who does, please share this with them. They might be able to help them out when they're stuck at home or sitting at a desk a little bit more often than usual. And then what we'll do tomorrow, we'll go through a few other movements and exercises for the upper body. Hope to see you then. Thank you.